Hello everybody, it's a vertical sandwich. Welcome back to book reviews. So, today we are doing the 2020 Hugo Award winner. This is the last Hugo Award winner in the list until they announce a new winner. So after this I'm on my own. Yeah, well we've got, there are books I love. There are books I would like to talk about aside from kind of science fiction fantasy books. And there are books, obviously we just did 1984, which was a 25-minute review or something of this poor book has to follow that. There are other books that I love that I would like to kind of just share with people. And then there are there are some Nebula Award winners I've read, and some other classic science fiction that I read off of other lists that we can do. So the book reviews are going to continue because book reviews are book reviews, and a book review a week is not a heavy burden to throw at oneself. All right, so this is A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. And on the back, layered, nuanced, and startlingly imaginative. A Memory Called Empire is a sprawling space opera debut that puts a rare new stamp on the genre. Ambassador Mahit Dismer travels to the capital of the interstellar Texcalanli Empire. Eager to make up her new post, she arrives only to discover that her predecessor has died, and no one will admit that his death wasn't accidental, or that Mahit might be next. Now Mahit must discover who is behind the murder, rescue herself, and save her small but fiercely independent mining station from Texcalan's unceasing expansion, all while navigating an alien culture that is all too seductive, engaging in intrigues of her own, and hiding a deadly technological secret, one that might spell the end of her station and her way of life, or rescue it from annihilation. So, let's see if is there stuff about the author. I would like to know about the author because this is her debut. She's a speculative fiction writer, and as Dr. Anna Linden Weller, a historian of the Byzantine Empire and a city planner. Under both names, she writes about border politics, rhetoric, propaganda, and the edges of the world. Martine grew up in New York City, and after some time in Turkey, Canada, and Sweden, lives in New Mexico with her wife, the author Vivian Shaw. Okay, well, good for her. There's no prejudices here. There she is. That's her dust jacket picture. A lot of what I recognize some of this, like the conventions of naming for characters, in the Chexcalan, and it's Z. It's like it's probably like Chichcalan. I recognize a lot of those conventions from Mesoamerican archaeology. So, like, the names of characters are things like 3 Seagrass, and like that was a Mesoamerican convention to name people on the calendar date they were born. And since the calendar was a series of numbers and then a series of symbols, you would end up with names like 12 ads, A-D-Z-E, ads. But I'm 20 years out of college, so not 20, probably more like 15. But and that's cool. That's cool. It's a convention that if you're familiar with it, you instantly hit it, and you just go like, oh yeah, like seriously, that's the thing. So and they talk about that. They talk about that naming convention and kind of this doesn't seem to be based directly on a calendar. It seems to be based more on tradition, which is fun. It's especially fun. I would really like to know the story about how a space exploration culture in what I presume to be the future has adopted the conventions of a culture where those conventions are largely dead. Not completely. I mean, it's foolish to say that there are no remnants of kind of ancient Mesoamerica in Mesoamerica, but maybe those conventions are similar in other society. You know, she is a historian of the Byzantine Empire, and I know nothing about that. Nothing. At all. So, anyway, this person is selected as from a station, like a space station. She's the ambassador to this gigantic multiplanetary empire. And when what the thing about her is, she has a thing in her head that the way they're called imago machines. Imago machines? Imago machines. And I don't know the pronunciations. I just read the books. Like, I have to make up the pronunciations of new words in my head. And what it does is that people who are important enough have these machines in their head, and it records their personality. And then at some point, those machines are taken out of them, either at their death or maybe even at the point before, and put into people who take over their jobs. So then there's a line of succession of integrated personalities. So there are people have multiple people in their head. So like if person A, let's call person A Steve. Steve is a pilot, and he has tons of piloting experience piloting in space. And his imago machine has recorded all of his years of experience, and they take that out and they put it into Dawn. And Dawn now has it like integrates Steve's personality into hers, and she becomes like a composite person. Like the two personalities become one person. Like all that experience and kind of personality and memory is integrated into the new person. And then that imago machine records the new hybrid personality, and then that is put into Steve and Dawn into Claire. So then Claire gets Steve and Dawn integrated into there. So like you get these people who are like the 14th person in a line of pilots, and they have 14 pilots' lifetimes worth of experience integrated into their personality, and they become like they call them imago lines. And so the person she's going to replace was the first ambassador to this empire, or maybe not. Is he the first ambassador? I think he is the first. So he does not have kind of inherently like. So she is actually the first person in a line. She is forming a line, but because this person has kind of disappeared into this empire and nobody's heard from them in 20 years, the imago integrated personality she has is 20 years out of date, because that happens. You can update them and things like that. So she is missing 20 years worth of experience when she goes to this empire, and she's going because they've requested a new ambassador. There's no real word for what. And the crisis involved in this is, upon seeing his own dead body, her imago machine like just stops functioning. It just fritzes out. And so now suddenly she expected to have the experience of an ambassador who'd been here and knew people and things like that, and suddenly she's alone. And this culture does not utilize or possess this technology whatsoever. They have no idea that these people are walking around with essentially the memories and personalities of dead people in their head. It's a little less simple than that. But here's the thing: Arkady does a really good job of giving you those ideas, right? Like, because they're complicated ideas. This is a big book. This is 400 pages, and it's a mid-speed read. Like, it's not like an absolute page turner. Take it on a sit down in the weekend and read it. But it also is not. I'm reading a book right now that I've been reading for a month, and I'm 150 pages into it, because it's just it's work. This book is not work to read. It's actually very exciting. There's a lot of action. So let's open it and read a little bit so you get a feel for the text. The problem with sending messages was that people responded to them, which meant one had to write more messages in reply. The sun slipping up over the horizon was bright and chilly through the unshaded window panes. Inescapable, it drove Mahit out of what scraps of sleep she'd managed. It was barely dawn, and yet there were 3 new infofiche sticks resting in the bowl outside the office door, sealed shut. Did 19 ads have the mail delivered on the hour every hour, even in the night? Mahit wrapped the enormous feather-filled quilt, presented to her at sundown the night before by the hyper-efficient hands of 7 scale, around her shoulders. She was awake, and still alone inside her mind. It looked to be a permanent condition. Sitting up hurt. Her hip had stiffened more in the night, and when she peeled down her borrowed pajama trousers, she could see the bruise there, black-purple, paling to a sick green at the edges, was as large as her spread hand. She wondered if there were painkillers to be had in her new elaborate prison, as well as the delivered quilt and last night's tray of serviceable but unremarkable vegetable slices, and more of that fibrous paste 3 seagrass had served her for breakfast. Otherwise, 19 ads had left her alone, as if her excellency was waiting for her new pet to settle so she wouldn't snap at outstretched hands. Still encased in the quilt and wincing as she stood up and got the hip moving, Mahit went to fish out the infofiche sticks and opened them. The first was as anonymous as the one she'd sent, gray and sealed with undyed wax. She snapped it open, shook it to make it disgorge its light spun glyphs. Your friend composes warily on the subject of enclosures, boundaries, demarcations, edges of knives, but thinks also of you, subject to lonesomeness, and sends 12 flowers as a promise if you need them. It was poetry. It wasn't very good poetry, but it seemed to be an allusion, meaning, oh, expletive. Well, that's, oh, fuck. Like, that's, did the edge shine of a knife, a zoo cat, throw you in prison, and can I help? It was unsigned. A Zuzu cat? A Shuzu cat. Not that it needed to be signed, but he had only sent 3 messages, and neither the Minister for Science nor the multitude of minor functionaries in the Information Ministry would reply in blatant code. This was 12 Azalea, and he was probably simultaneously sincere in his desire to effect a rescue if she needed one, and having far too much fun. Coded messages, anonymous communiques across departmental lines, and Mahit thought that she had an untoward degree of affection for the genre convention of political intrigue in Texarkana literature. Was it untoward if one lived it? In one's own culture? Yes, she decided it was untoward when one reenacted it for the sake of the convention. But a Txkalanlitslim wouldn't think that. That's apparently the proper term for people who are Texarkana. Sorry about the pronunciation butchering, but this book is good. It's good. It's a good book. There actually is, I believe there's a sequel called The Desolation Called Peace. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I would not be against the idea of reading a sequel. I enjoyed the characters. Mahit is very relatable. The people who befriend her and work with her, the kind of exciting, because this does get to be a political intrigue novel, right? Like a spy novel, where they're sneaking around and trying to evade authorities and things like that. It does this really well. Down Below Station does it horribly, and this does it really well. So if you want that, if you want kind of this interesting view into ancient culture kind of projected into space, and then this kind of intrigue, and then layered on top of that the novel idea of having somebody's past in your mind. Wow, it was really done well. It's done very well, and I like that. Now the thing I will say is that Arkady Martine did one thing very well. This book is not inherently open-ended. So you don't finish this book and go, oh great, now I have to read A Desolation Called Peace. This book closes itself and leaves its characters in positions where a sequel could be written, which is good. I don't feel that I have to read A Desolation Called Peace to get everything I needed to get out of a memory called Empire. And kudos to the author for that, because that's huge for me. I don't want you to, like, if I've spent the time to read your book, I don't want you to sign a reservation for me to read the next one. Like, I want you to, it's fine for you to invite me to read the next one, but don't require me. And I like that. I like this book. It was, it's a suitable entry into the list of Hugo Award winners. Is it going to make my top 10 list? Probably not. Is it going to make my bottom 5? Absolutely not. It was a good book. It's a good book, and it's refreshing to see, like, a good standard, it's like a solid read with interesting ideas and a good amount of creativity entered by a first-time author. I liked this a lot. I liked it way better than kind of anything else. Obviously, N.K. Jemison's stuff is mind-blowingly good. But this, I didn't like Lady Astronaut, the Lady Astronaut tale, very much. But this I liked. This I really liked. So I can suggest this. I think it's good. I'm always turned off by the term space opera because I mean I hate it as a term and I don't like it as a genre idea. But this actually worked really well. It wasn't. It was about interstellar politics essentially, and there's something really fun about that, like about the idea of personalized interstellar political drama. Like I like that. I like that. There wasn't a lot of spaceships flying around and things like that. It was just about that. It was about political intrigue and it was fine. It was good. It was really good. The author clearly knew what they wanted to do, set out to do it, succeeded, and the finished piece is a very readable and enjoyable book. That's the most important thing. Those are the things. When I talk about the basic requirements of a science fiction novel, or the basic requirements of any novel, being that it's readable, and that the characters are relatable in some way, and that the action moves, and and that there's some sort of resolution. Like this checks all my boxes. It was like I said, I'm glad I read it. I'm glad it was included in the list. I think for a first time entry, I think it's amazing. This is somebody's first novel, like, because it seems practiced. It doesn't. I did not. There wasn't anything I hated where I was just like we could cut these things out. We could. And I did not begrudge the amount of time that the main character spends in their own head, because that's the plot. The plot is that she's supposed to have knowledge, and through some mishap she doesn't, and like that's a huge deal. And I liked that. I liked everything about it. I really did. I liked yeah, it's good. It was good. This is a memory called Empire. You should read it. It's a good book. If what you're looking for is, I found no fault in this book. It did exactly what it was trying to do, and I enjoyed it. And that's really, for me, that's high praise. That like most novels, I will tell you the things I have problems with. Like I will sit here and go like, don't ever read this book. Like you don't have to read this book. It's on the list, but you don't have to. This is not that book. This is a book you should read. Like it's good. It's a good book. I enjoyed it. I don't want the time I spent reading it back. I liked it. I genuinely liked it. And it says a lot about me that I would consider reading the second book. I mean, I don't own it, but like I might soon, and then I do a review in that because like I liked the characters and I liked the setting and I liked the world that this author created, so that was cool. Like, yeah, recommend it. It's a good book. So that concludes our list of Hugo Award winners, and I'm not sad for the obligation. Reading Hugo Awards opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. Maybe we should do this as a separate video. I'm going to click this off, and when I come back, we're going to talk about Hugo Awards, just to kind of in general, maybe. Or maybe not. I don't know. I've got some time. So I'll see you guys for that, and bye, everybody.